Now I'm going to take us through a lot of objections really quickly. Relevance. That's just saying that something has nothing to do with the trial or nothing to do with proving an important issue. It's not going to be a winner objection. It's not going to be something that's really accepted a lot because in a mock trial, the whole point is to show what you know. And the judges aren't going to let you win a relevance objection because it's going to keep too much out of the trial. So, generally, although you can make it and your opponents will make it, the judges won't usually sustain the objection and keep something out of trial. They'll say, okay, we'll take a note of that objection and we'll let the opponent continue for the sake of the trial. Now, I'm not saying that you can't win a relevance objection, but just know that it's not a real major objection that you're going to win a lot at a mock trial. One of the responses that you can give if somebody objects to your evidence being not relevant is you could say, Your Honor, could you please let me continue just a couple more questions? I'm laying the foundation for a relevant point. And the reason you would say that is because sometimes as students, you'll have some crazy theory or tactic you're trying to sneak into a mock trial because you're wanting to have fun with it and uh, you're a student. Well, you want to go ahead and do that kind of quickly because otherwise, sometimes students are kind of off topic when they're doing their crazy theories. So make sure that you tell the judge you're getting to an important point quickly. And then after you say that, get to your important point quickly. When you've been objected to for relevance, just know that you're probably out of bounds and you need to come back in bounds with your crazy theory. But it's okay to have crazy theories. Just know that the judge is going to get upset if you keep on down that out of bounds track. Another thing that's going to come up is the 403 balancing test down here. And that is saying that, sure, something's relevant, but its probative value, which means relevance, is substantially outweighed by blank. And when I say blank, there's about 6 different things that it could be outweighed by. And the number one thing is prejudice. You say, sure, this picture of all the dead children is relevant, but it's unfairly prejudicial. It outweighs the relevance or the probative value. The jury seeing these dead children is just going to make them all angry and it's going to prejudice their feelings in this trial. So there are other ones here that you can read over on your own, but anytime that something's relevant, it doesn't mean it's automatically admissible. Its relevance can be outweighed by one of those 6 things that I have listed on the objection cheat sheet. Leading questions, you should know what those are by now. It's just the attorney putting words in the witness's mouth. You better have that right in your holster ready to pull at any time you hear the opponent putting words in their own witness's mouth during direct examination. Now, I'll give you a tip. Don't embarrass yourself during a cross examination and object to a leading question because that's what the attorneys are supposed to be doing. During a cross examination, they have to lead. So I've seen people object to that during a cross. Don't get confused and do that because leading is only something you object to during a direct examination. Now, assuming facts is not an evidence, that's something that can come up during a mock trial if, for example, you have read the entire case, you know all the facts in the case, so you just jump right in and say, Grayson planted the termites on the arch. And you leave it at that. In this Grayson case, you haven't established that Grayson even worked with termites or what the arch is. So you're assuming facts, not in evidence. Because you know all the facts in your head, sometimes you'll jump ahead and try to make a point that involves facts that have not been brought up before. So you need to baby step it. Keep in mind that the jury, the pretend jury, doesn't know anything. And you're going to have to introduce them to this character, Grayson. You're going to have to introduce them to the point that Grayson works at a lab with termites and he has this grudge against Harper and that he wants Harper to die and that he has this scheme involving an arch and where this arch is and what the feats are that they're doing. You really have to build up the whole story. So if you jump to the end of the story and start asking questions about termites in an arch or whatever other thing you want to ask about that's a end of the story type point, then you can get objected to for assuming facts not in evidence. You have to baby step it. Keep that in mind. Just baby stepping your story out like you're telling it to someone that doesn't know anything. Narrative answer, again, is kind of for students on their crazy theories. If you're asking a witness, tell me about what happened on the day of the crime, generally that's going to be a narrative answer. Your witness is just going to unload on this huge long story about what happened, the whole case, all in one answer. You don't want that. You don't want to ask a question that's going to have an answer that's, 2 pages long. You want to ask specific questions, not leading during a direct examination, but specific enough where we know what you're getting at. You don't want to have the witness telling a huge long story or it'll be a narrative answer. If something is unclear, you can object to it being confusing or misleading or vague. Just keep in mind if your witness is getting questioned by an opponent and the questions really don't make sense and you want to save your witness, you can object and say, Your Honor, this is a vague question. Can you please have the counsel either stop asking it or reword it so my witness will understand it? And I would phrase that in a more polite way at a trial, but you get what I'm saying. You can object and save your witness if your opponent is asking weird, vague questions. Now, a compound question is a good question to make during a mock trial because student attorneys are not going to have a great question style most times. They're going to have lots of points they're trying to make, and sometimes they'll try to make 2 or 3 at once. So they'll ask a question like, You were there on the night of the crime and you planted the termites because you don't like Harper and because Harper was going to turn you in for cheating, right? That was like 10 questions in one. That's a compound question. So you have to, again, baby step those questions out. You were there on the night of the crime, right? You have a vendetta against Harper, right? You have access to termites, right? So break questions into one answer sections. You don't want to have questions that require multiple answers because that's called a compound question. That's too many questions in one. Repetition is a good one in a mock trial as well. That's where someone has made a great point and they're a student and they're thinking really highly of themselves and they just want to keep on beating that down. Grayson, you didn't like Harper, did you? Grayson admits it. I didn't like Harper. Okay, so the next question should not be about Grayson not liking Harper again. You shouldn't say, You really didn't like Harper. You want her dead, didn't you? Because if you keep on saying the same thing over and over, you can get objected to with this repetition or asked and answered objection. Don't let yourself get so excited that you keep on asking the same thing to really rub it in because you're not allowed to do that. Argumentative questions, obvious, just don't be smart aleck. On television, they're smart aleck and, feisty and trying to really make the other person look bad, but don't do that at a mock trial because it doesn't gain you any points. It almost can help lose you points if you look too rude, then you're not going to look very likable, and you want to be likable. Because juries in real life, they actually like likable attorneys. They don't like attorneys that are up there trying to make people look bad and trip them up and embarrass them. Now, if you trip somebody up and embarrass them, there is a good way to do that in a polite way by making someone make a mistake. But I would not try to make someone make a mistake in a rude kind of gotcha, you're stupid kind of way. You want to do it in a, I have an intelligent point and I'm going to trick you by making this intelligent point kind of way. You want to do it professionally and not in a smart aleck way. If you can't do that, then just don't mess with it at all. Non-responsive answers. This is actually one of the rare times when you are examining someone and you can use an objection. If you're asking an opponent witness a question and they're like, well, I was born in July of 1990, and they're going off on this strange story because they're trying to avoid your question, you can say, Your Honor, objection, this is a non-responsive answer. Can you please direct the witness to answer my question? A lot of times, what I would tell witnesses to do is don't directly answer the questions, kind of slip their own PowerPoints in, try to be a little bit hard to get when you're a witness, and that's good. But if a witness is doing that to you, you shouldn't accept that. Don't let that witness dance around. Make them answer your question. Now, if the judge doesn't make them answer your question, or the judge says they have a right to explain themselves, then you have to let them do that.